friends. Welcome to the Creative Impact Podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Caldwell, and I'm so happy you're here. Each episode, I take some time to chat with fellow artists about life, faith, and the impact of the arts.
I personally believe when artists are healthy, when storytellers are healthy, then they do a great job telling stories and creating art. Exceptional art changes the way people see the world. When people are changed, when they see the world in a different way, then they contribute more to the society that they're in. And when people are changed, communities are changed. When communities are changed, cultures change. When culture is changed, everything gets better. That's why I do what I do.
Today is officially our 10th episode. Thank you for being a part of this journey and for every bit of encouragement along the way. I've loved connecting with so many of you through Facebook and Instagram. Now is the perfect time to subscribe to the show if you haven't already. When you subscribe, new episodes will be ready and waiting for you every Tuesday. I'd like to take a second and thank Amy for her 5-star review on iTunes. Amy says, "I love this podcast and excitedly wait for the new release every week to get me through my marathon training, even though lots of races are canceled due to COVID. Listening to Rachel and her guests reminds me that I can do hard things and I can live life to the fullest with faith, hope, and joy. Highly recommend to everyone, especially someone like me who wish for a drop of creativity but appreciate everything about fine arts." Wow, thank you so much, Amy. It means so much to hear from our listeners. Friends, I know you are going to love this conversation. My guest is professional musical theater performer and all-around fun guy, Clayton Winters. Clayton is a longtime friend of my husband, Ben, and he was actually a groomsman in our wedding. Clayton's experiences in performance, teaching, and in vocational ministry allow him to speak from a variety of perspectives in the industry. We chat about how Clayton, in his own words, was a total nuisance in school. This led to his start in theater at a young age, combining his love of stories and his entrepreneurial spirit. He's been working as a professional performer since the age of 11. Through our conversation, you'll hear about the incredible twists and turns in his life, including a season where everything was taken away and the pursuit of his appetites left him void of hope or fulfillment. Clayton says, in that void was Jesus. Clayton shares the story of meeting his wife and how they have been on a journey of bold obedience together as a family. You'll hear some wild stories of how God has worked in their lives. Clayton knows that it's hard to make the jump from the early career phase as an artist to having a self-sustaining arts career. His passion is to help artists thrive and find ways to earn a steady income. Through his businesses, Clayton makes this passion a reality for himself and others. Get ready for some incredible stories and enjoy my conversation with Clayton Winters. Well, I am here with Clayton Winters, and I'm super excited to get to chat with you today on the podcast. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well.
Good. Well, thank you for joining me. So, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself, your family, and what you're up to these days?
Absolutely. So I know the podcast here is about artists, believer artists, just being an encouragement. And so a little history, I guess, is that I am a professional musical theater performer. And I've also done a little film and commercial work as well throughout my years. And I'm 37 now, but I've had a 25-year career already as a professional. I did my first equity show when I was 11 years old in Kansas City.
That's super cool.
Yeah, it really was. I just sort of found my thing as a kid. And, my folks were blue collar and they went to work and they got a job. And I started going to rehearsals and I started getting a paycheck when I was 11. And I just thought, oh, well, I guess this is my job now. And that just put the stamp on it. And
Wow.
And I never really wanted to do anything else, to my own detriment, honestly. I think at some points, hey, what do you want to be when you grow up? Well, I'm already an actor, so
Right.
I don't want to be anything but that. But what has been interesting is that I think I've always had this sort of entrepreneurial spirit.
Mm-hmm.
And that I think that goes into a larger sort of calling or ordinance or design by God, how he makes every one of us to sort of, suit the body and meet the need. And so even though I was performing, I was always like side hustling something. Like I was selling bookmarks I made in third grade, or I was scalping pencils from the library and trying to turn a buck, or what, I was always doing something, always thinking of a new idea. And so I've always been a performer, but I've always been doing something on the side as well.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. That makes a whole lot of sense, actually, especially hearing or knowing a little bit more about your story, which I'm excited to get into later.
Yeah,
So I know you are married, and you want to tell us a little bit about Jesse?
I am. I met my wife in Oklahoma City 11, well, I guess it'd be 12 years ago now. We've been married for 11 years. And
Congratulations.
thank you very much. It is by the Lord's goodwill that we've made it this far. And we both went to the same university. We just went 4 years apart. She graduated in 2001. I showed up in 2001. She studied ballet. I studied musical theater and theater. She has told the story that she promised that she would never be interested in an actor or a dancer or anybody younger than her. And turns out I'm all three of those things. And I have said that it just goes to show that I was listening to Jesus better than she was. And so,
Love that.
When we met, we actually both met because we were working with the same company. We were working with a mentoring program where we were teaching fifth graders ballroom.
That's so cool.
Rumba and merengue and jazz and tango and swing and foxtrot and all kinds of things. And in the season of life when we met, like I just knew it was time to get married. And in a sort of a bothersome way, it was like all I could think about. So I couldn't go to the grocery store because I was thinking about getting married, and I couldn't eat lunch because I was thinking about getting married. And the day that she walked into the job we were both working, she sort of came up fashionably late, and she walked in and she had this like flowing curly blonde hair and was wearing this bright dress. And I looked at her and I thought, not my type. Thank God. Let's just get to work. And and I was certain that there was nothing there from the moment I laid eyes on her. And then I think within like 30 days, I was telling my friends that I was pretty sure we were supposed to get married.
Wow.
And of course, my friends were like, Clayton, you can't just say you're going to get married to somebody because they love Jesus. And I said, you're right. I know a lot of people love Jesus. I don't even like them, but this is different. And, I think within 90 days of that first day of work, we had already determined, what the timeline was going to be. We started premarital counseling, which is wise. Anybody out there, whether you're a believer or not, you think you're going to get married to somebody, you should spend, I don't know, at least 6 months. I think Jesse and I did it for 9 months. Really asking the tough questions or being asked the tough questions by people who care for you and won't deal with your BS. And you're like, no, everything's cool. And they'll look at you and be like, you're a liar and you need Jesus before you get married.
Yes, I would totally second that for sure. Wisdom right here.
And it was a great experience, and really, I think, set us up for success in marriage. We've got a little girl. Her name is Evie. She is 7 years old. She is a wildly creative person. I don't think she really has a choice. She has grown up in the rehearsal room and in the dance studio, and one of her favorite things to do is just read books and to dance and play and be imaginative.
That's so beautiful. And I got to see some pictures of Evie recently, and she is so precious. And she does look very grown up as well. Still innocent little kid, but also kind of this maturity about her, which is super sweet.
Yeah. Well, part of that, I think, comes from being homeschooled with, it's just Jesse and I at the house. And I know when we were in Oklahoma City where we met, we were a part of a spectacular community. And both Jesse and I went to public school. And so this was the decision this was a decision that we made because we just kind of did the math, and I was like, oh, okay, well, if a kid leaves the house, catches a bus at 7 a.m. and comes back at 2:30 or 3 o'clock, it's only a few more hours in the day before it's dinner and then bedtime.
Right.
And we thought like, wow, we'll be spending fewer hours with our child than we desire,
Mm-hmm.
and but also one of the things that has allowed us to do is it has allowed us to travel for work. So we've done shows in Iowa and Kentucky and Alabama and Texas and Oklahoma and Kansas. And now, we live in Connecticut and we've traveled to New York and the Carolinas. And we've gone all over, and we get to stay as a family, and we get to be creative. We get to meet new people. We get to see new places. And we've had some really just sweet moments.
Yeah.
Like I think we've walked parts of the Appalachian Trail in like 4 different states.
Wow.
And I know as a kid, and Evie loves to be outdoors. And I know for me as a kid, all I walked was like to school and home.
Right.
That was
none of this
that was
Appalachian
it.
Trail stuff.
Yeah, no Appalachian Trails in Kansas City, and I don't think I left the state really until high school.
Mm-hmm.
So she's got amazing experiences already. She has seen masterworks of art, and she has seen more classic works of art and literature and theater in her first 5 years of life than I had seen in my first 30.
Wow,
Which is
that's so cool.
just amazing. It's a lovely opportunity.
Yeah, that's a great opportunity. So neat. And just spoiler alert, we will have Clayton's wife, Jessie, on the podcast as well. So you'll get to meet her and hear from her as well. So just letting our listeners know.
And her version of our story is much better. I'll just say that now.
Yeah, so we'll get both sides, and then y'all can compare notes that are listening. So all right. So I would love to hear, you told us a little bit of the overview of your story, but can we dig a little deeper into how you got started as a performer? So it's pretty young, it sounds like.
Yeah, I was just a total nuisance in school, I guess. Like I'd quickly get my work done, and then I'd start telling jokes and stories and goofing off in class and just chatting up people.
Nice.
And so then I'd be sent to the hallway, and then I'd talk to everybody in the hallway, and then I'd be put in the corner of the room, and then I'd create some imaginative playland in the corner of the room until I'd be sent to the principal's office. And then in the principal's office, I'd, have everybody cracking jokes, there. And
right.
Eventually there came this moment where all of the teachers, usually in a parent-teacher conference, it's like your teacher and your parent.
Mm-hmm.
But we had like a school-wide parent-teacher conference. It was my mother and my teacher and the music teacher and the gym teacher and the vice principal.
You're bringing everybody together.
Unity is really important.
Yeah.
And especially unity through storytelling, which I think is like one of the key and essential themes of my life. But brought a lot of folks together for this event, and they just said, Miss Winters, you're going to have to get your child into something. He's too engaged,
he needs something else to occupy his time.
He needs something else to do, yeah. And so I started doing some theater classes when I was 8 or 9 years old. And I really took to that, really enjoyed it, had a knack for it. And that led to community performances. Community performances led to local professional shows. Local professional shows led to regional theater performances. And so by the time I was 11, I was out of school more than I was in school because I was working. And
right.
which totally like warped my childhood. And all of my friends were adult professional actors, and it made me a total weirdo. I think in a good way.
Yeah.
But it just really shaped, who I was going to become. And then I just never stopped. Like I actually transferred high schools to go to a school that had a better theater program. Once I graduated high school, I went to a really exceptional BFA program for musical theater, graduated with a BFA in theater performance, and then immediately started performing and teaching as much as I could. And because you are an artist, and many of you know this, as an artist, it's hard to make that jump, right? It's hard to make that jump to go from, student or early career professional into a self-sustaining arts career.
For sure. Yeah.
And so I think I was working 4 jobs all at once. I was slinging coffee. I was teaching private lessons. I was working at a hotel. I was also doing some private contract stuff for what was I doing? I was doing like audio engineering and audiobooks for a publishing company. And I was working 60 hours a week between Monday and Thursday. And then we sort of glossed over the moment where I became a believer, but that
we can come back to that as well. Yeah.
That happened during that point of time. I got married during that point of time. And so my wife and I had been married for about 1.5 years and working tirelessly. And I think we did our taxes after that first year and realized that combined, we had made like $22,000 that year.
Whoa. Yeah.
And the Lord is faithful. We had everything we needed. We had an amazing community. We had food on the table. We had a roof over our head. But I just kind of realized that we weren't going to be able to have the experience as a family that we wanted unless something changed. And so we took on, I say we, but really I took on a short season of prayer and fasting. And some folks out there are like, you don't need to do that. But I'll tell you what, it really gave me some clarity. And it was a sanctifying thing. Like I was really separating myself from the noise of my life to get my ear on the heart of Jesus.
That's beautiful.
And he gave me two directions. He said, you need to pursue stage combat certification, which was something I could have done when I was in undergrad, but it wasn't quite available to us.
Gotcha.
And then you need to go to grad school. I was like, oh, this is awesome. I can do both of these things. That's exactly what I'll do. And that plan did not tell me how it was going to change my life. But all I knew was that I had 2 steps I needed to take. And to be totally transparent, I actually did them out of order.
Okay, gotcha.
I immediately began to apply for grad school, and I looked at the schools that I wanted to go to. I picked 3 that were on the top of my list. I had 5 total that I was interested in. And these were some of the best MFA programs in theater performance. And I thought my goal would be to teach. And so I applied. I went and visited. I went and I auditioned. And one school, I was just absolutely certain this was it. And it was the National Theater Conservatory in Denver. And I went and visited. I went and had an audition. Turns out one of the gals I went to high school with was there finishing her program. And I was like, this is divine. This is perfect. We've got friends planted a church out here. I'm absolutely in love with Colorado. I can go to NTC. This is going to be great. I had an audition and I got my declination letter, right? Sorry, Clayton, it's not going to work. And I thought like, well, that's no big deal. I'm going to go back and audition anyway. This is the school I want to go to. So it's just a matter of time till, I'll be persistent. It's just a matter of time till I get what I want. And the school closed. Oh, like their funding was cut. Whoa. And they shut down and stopped accepting people at all.
Yeah, that makes a difference for sure. Kind of changes things.
And I sort of look back at that. I'm like, okay, if the Lord shut down that school, so I didn't go back, that's kind of heavy, but I would have gone back had he not done that. And what I realized is that I had gotten out of order. I was told to pursue stage combat, which is something Ben and I have actually worked on together. Your husband.
Yeah, he loves that kind of stuff.
We've done some stuff together. And then was grad school. So I found an opportunity nearby, the university that I got my undergrad from. There was a teacher there who did stage combat, and I called him and I said, hey, I want to be your assistant. I want to help you teach your classes. And he and I had done some work together before. He had choreographed a show, and I was fight captain for the show. So it was a good relationship. And I said, I want to be your assistant. Let me be in your class. I will teach a class when you're away, and I want to test and get certified. And
Nice.
so I drove 45 minutes, one direction, 4 days a week for no pay just to be in this class. And I did that for a year and a half. And because of that, he asked me, hey, why are you doing this? I said, well, I got a plan. First step is to do this certification. Second step is to go to grad school. And he said, well, I want you to think about going to my alma mater.
Oh, interesting.
I learned what I learned about teaching at this university, and it's one of the best in the nation for people who are interested in teaching theater on the college level. So yeah, absolutely, we'll look into that, and that wound up being where I went.
Oh, neat.
And I got my MFA. So it's like it is about following the right steps, right? You want to go in order.
It makes sense. And a lot of times it is just that next step, or like you had like 2 steps, we don't see the full picture, but yeah.
Yeah, you don't always see the full picture. And I can look back now and, it is the Lord, y'all. Listen, if you're listening to this right now, just let me tell you, Jesus wants to talk to you. He wants you to listen to him. He is good, so he's going to give you good advice. He's going to tell you what to do next, and all you have to do is do it. Don't question it. Don't argue with him. Don't fight with him. Don't tell him why he's wrong. He's not wrong. He's Jesus. In fact, he is the way. So
right.
just go with it. It may seem wild, not crazy, right? Crazy is doing the wrong things, hoping for good things. He's not crazy, but he's wild, right? He's good, but he's not a tame lion. And and you go on the journey with him. You're going to have amazing stories, but it's going to seem wild. And so for us, that's what it was. It was a wild thing to move halfway across the country to a city you've never been to before, to pursue grad school, to leave behind everybody you went to church with, all the classes you'd ever taught, the studio that was just growing by leaps and bounds. When Jessie and I started working together at Arts, and she had been there longer than I, there were a couple hundred people, maybe, and it was a building that had one studio. And when we left Oklahoma City, there were over 500 people in the studio. There were 6 different dance rooms. There was a theater space. Like, it was blowing up.
Yeah.
And we walked away from that into a community we had never been to before, because that's what Jesus asked us to do. But because we did that, the best professional theater relationships I have because we took that step.
Yeah.
The most exciting creative opportunities I've ever been a part of, we had access to because we took that step. Because we took that step, I then was able to get a job as the director of musical theater at a university in Birmingham, Alabama, where everything I'm doing now as a career coach and consultant with a business I started 3 years ago called auditionboss.com, everything I'm doing now was absolutely codified during that period of time. Some of the best relationships I have with other believing artists were started during that time. And it's because we took that step. And it's
you can see those threads all the way through,
You absolutely can. Speaking of those threads, while we were in Virginia at VCU, which is where I got my MFA, it was the season in which my daughter was being born. So we had this new baby.
Oh, yeah.
We were kind of being kicked out of the house we were in because it had been sold out from underneath us while we were renting. So we've got a new baby. We've got to move. There's an opportunity to either buy the house and take out like a $230,000 loan to go on top of student loan debt. And all the while I was working vocationally. I was a full-time student, and I was working in music ministry at a church there.
Okay.
As the worship director, which is something I have done continually while I was a professional performer. There was this moment where I was kind of freaking out because I knew we had to move. We did not have a place in the city to move to, but we had like days to figure it out. And I was just driving around the city of Richmond and just praying and praying and praying and praying. And in a moment, now I'm just going to tell you this now, how it seems wild, but to me, it just seems normal Jesus stuff because it happens all the time.
Gotcha.
I was driving down Kansas Street and I stopped at a stop sign, and I just stopped and I put the car in park and I just began to pray like, God, I need you to tell me what is next. Like, where am I supposed to go? And
I feel like I can see where this is going.
Yeah. I felt like the Lord said, well, just turn left. I was like, what? Turn left? Like, is the place we're supposed to rent on this next street? Is that what it is? So I opened my eyes and I turned left, and I turned from Kansas Street onto New York Avenue.
Mm.
And as I'm looking at that street sign and I'm turning, you know that feeling when God is just near?
Mm-hmm.
It's like when you do something right and your parents wrap their arms around you and they go, yes, we're so proud of you. Good job. You know, that sort of like crazy warm feeling you have. I turned from Kansas Street onto New York Avenue, and instantly I had that nearness feeling. I'm a big fan of C.S. Lewis. And
same, for sure.
And it says, like, Lucy looked into the lion's eyes, and she had a kind of fear that also felt like joy.
Ooh, yeah.
And
good.
that's what I experienced. And I had to park the car again, and I just began to cry because I had put away this dream of going to New York and being a performer a long, long time ago. And I just parked the car and I said, are you telling me that I'm going to go from Kansas to New York? Is that what you're saying to me right now? And I just felt this yes, in my spirit. I felt this yes. And I just wept because that dream of being a performer in New York had died for me a long time ago. I had given it up.
Wow. Yeah.
And I felt the Lord saying, yes, that's what was going to happen. And then he took us to Birmingham, Alabama, about as far away from New York City as you can get culturally.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what to do, but I said yes. So I went to Birmingham and I did my job. And while I was there, I was teaching all these spectacular kids and working with great artists. And I started actually performing more as a full-time director of musical theater at a university. I started performing more than when I was away and actually auditioning all the time.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
And I was nowhere near being a performer in New York City. Like that was...
like, where did that go? Yeah.
Yeah. I just said yes to Jesus. Like, okay, if this is what you want, this is what I'll do. And then the university actually paid for me to take a trip to New York City for continued education and to help some students in some classes and things like that.
Sweet,
and so
yeah.
I went to the city while I was there. And while I was there, the Lord was just all over it. He's like, this is it. This is where you're going. And over the next year, 2 years, over the next 2 years, he just made that clearer and clearer and clearer to me. So much so that, and I'm not quick to take action, even when Jesus is like, this is where you're going. I'm like, okay, Jesus, but I'm still pretty comfortable where I am until I absolutely know. And he shut down a lot of things to get me to move.
Oh, yeah.
And to make that happen, he had to reorient my heart this direction. And then he gave us an opportunity where we could live right outside of the city. And he gave us an opportunity to move to Southern Connecticut and become the director of worship and arts here at a church. And literally we're 70 minutes by train from Midtown.
Wow.
It's just, there's no way I ever could have imagined it being this way.
Mm-hmm.
And he has done it. He has provided a way for us to be close to the city. Now, once I got here, I thought, for sure, this is it. This is the season. He's put us within striking distance of the heart of the theater industry. insert coronavirus 2020, COVID-19, and the entire theater industry is absolutely shut down.
It's insane. It's just
it is
quiet.
neither wise nor safe to be in large groups. It is singing, ironically, is one of the most dangerous jobs you can have on the planet right now. So theater and musical theater has really slowed down. There's just nothing to do. Consequently, the side business I started as a career coach helping early career performers went absolutely on pause for about 5 months. But again, it's like you just follow the next thing Jesus asks you to do. And once you're there, then you just wait for the next thing he asks you to do until he makes the way clear. And in a sort of a roundabout way, that's how I got from being 11 to living in Connecticut.
Wow, that's incredible. Are you looking to build a new website or improve your current website? I personally use Bluehost web hosting for my website, and I love the user-friendly nature and their seamless integration with WordPress. To learn more about what Bluehost has to offer, you can check out creativeimpactpodcast.com/Bluehost. That's creativeimpactpodcast.com/BLUEHOST. Now back to my conversation with Clayton. Would love to dig into, I know you mentioned that season when you were working like 4 jobs, and that was when you came to know the Lord. And so I'd love to hear how your faith, the beginnings of your faith, and how that's influenced your life as an artist or just as a person.
Absolutely. Well, I'll say this. I didn't grow up in church. I was not really a believer. Maybe I was some kind of agnostic, something. I visited a few churches as a kid and in high school, and all I knew is that every time I went, I felt totally weird. Like I would show up, and that strange person up there would say something that was so remarkably accurate that it made me feel naked in public. Is maybe the best
just
way
super
to put
uncomfortable.
It. Yeah, like how did he know that? Why is he talking to me? I don't even know him.
Right.
And then I would like freak out. And I would leave, and I would not go back to a church, that church, or any church for years. And that happened to me repeatedly as a kid. And I didn't find out until much later that like I had church planting, traveling evangelists in my family. And many of the people in my family were church musicians for generations, which I didn't know until I became a believer, which sort of looked like this. Like, I was kind of like I don't know, in my life, I thought I was a king pagan, basically. Anything I wanted, I had. And if I couldn't get it myself, I could probably convince you to get it for me. Right? Apart from Jesus, I'm a terrible, terrible person. And, but you wouldn't know it. You think I was doing it for you, but really I was doing it for me.
Gotcha.
And there came a season of my life where Jesus just really took everything away from me. Some people get upset about that. You know, there's the verse in the song, you give and take away, but my heart will choose to stay. And I remember people going, that is not the Lord. The Lord does not take things away from you. I was like, you don't read the Bible.
Right.
You need to start reading the Bible. Because he even says, right, to the one who has but doesn't use, I will take it away and I will give it to somebody else. The parable of the tenants is one of the key things that the Lord has used in my life. And so he took away everything. Like he took away my relationship. He took away my job. He took away the community I was in. He took away the apartment I was in. I had to move across town. And there was a season where I was just absolutely by myself. I had nothing going for me and nothing going on. I had given myself, sort of like it says in Ecclesiastes, to my appetite. And it was all pointless. It was like eating a shadow sandwich. There was just nothing fulfilling about it. And in that void was Jesus. But it was just like me and Jesus, not me and the sweet man who had been inviting me to Bible study. Like it was just me and Jesus and my crazy overthinking brain. And so I would think for hours and hours and hours, like all kinds of banana stuff. And then Jesus would lead me to like pick up my Bible and read. And so for that summer that I became a believer, I would probably read scripture like 5 to 8 hours a day.
Oh, wow. Nice.
Because it was the only thing that brought me any peace.
Yeah.
It was the only thing that helped me to stay calm. It was like he leads me by still waters. And the waters were his word. And so basically I'd wake up and I would feel crazy and I would read. And I would read until lunchtime. And then I'd go to Taco Bell and I'd get a taco and whatever. And then I'd sit there and be in public and I would be eating a taco. And then I'd start to think about all the things that really upset me in the world and all the people who'd done me wrong and everybody I wanted to absolutely eradicate out of my life.
Yeah.
And then I'd start feeling insane. And then I'd just get in my car and I'd drive home and I'd pick up my Bible and then I'd read. And then I'd read until dinner. And I'd be so calm and chill and everything would make sense again. And then I would sit down to eat dinner. And while I was eating dinner, I'd start thinking about crazy things again. And then I'd pick up and I'd read until it was time to go to bed. And I just read all day long. It was the only way anything made sense. And Jesus spoke to me a lot during that period of time through his word, through his spirit, through other believers, and let me know that it was time to find a church. It was time to be baptized. And it was time to really commit my life to him. And I'm kind of a dramatic person,
Really?
maybe being in theater has been part of that. And being a dramatic person and just being the nature, having the nature that God has given me, I'm either all in or I'm all out. We're going to take the mountain, or we're going to run and go the other direction. And that was it. He was just calling me to be an all-in kind of believer. And my life changed so drastically during that short summer season that when I came back to school, people had no idea what was going on.
I bet.
Literally, I was selling drugs before, and then I came back with a Bible in my pocket, and they were like, what happened?
Who are you? Yeah.
This is crazy. And I was really on my own because the people I used to hang out with didn't want to hang out with me anymore because I wasn't selling drugs anymore. And the people who were believers didn't want to hang out with me because they had no context for what had happened. A lot of them grew up in church and a lot of them had been believers for a long, long time. And a lot of them were having existential crisis of the faith. I know Jesus is good, but I don't know why he chose me. And I don't know why he chooses anybody. And I just don't know if it's real. Right. And here I am. I'm like, wait a second. He totally chose you because he loves you. Look, he chose me too. And they're like, whoa, this guy's a lunatic. Yeah, lunatic for Jesus.
Right.
And
the best kind.
Right. And it just was, it was a wild season, but it sort of set the stamp and the mold for my walk in the Lord. And, my testimony and my poor dear wife married into it has been one of really bold obedience. I want you to leave the community that you have here in Oklahoma City, and I want you to move halfway across the country. Absolutely. We'll do, Jesus. And then we do. And then, okay, I want you to get ready to go to New York. All right, Jesus, we're ready to go to New York. Now go to Alabama. Different direction, Jesus, but that's what we'll do. And in that season, I really thought I had my dream job, right? I was the director of a musical theater program. I was recruiting kids from all over the United States. I really had an opportunity to do something exceptional with the tools that I had in front of me. I was helping to train up believers to become exceptional theater artists, which was a passion of mine. I was intentionally giving a place in higher education and in private Christian education to people of color. Like I was aggressively recruiting these amazing artists from communities that don't typically get access to those places.
Wow. Yeah.
I was being able to be intentional with that stuff.
Yeah. It seems really a
And
lot of purpose there, or you would sense a lot of purpose there,
exactly. I loved it. Unfortunately, that environment was like totally toxic. The people that I worked with did not, even though we all believed in Jesus, that was about the only thing we agreed on.
Gotcha.
What it meant to be a professional, what it meant to use your position as an educator to influence and to create opportunities for, like, we just disagreed on all of those things. Ultimately, like, it was my dream job, but it also made me depressed, like to the point where I was sick, depressed and sick.
It's interesting how both of those things can be in the same space,
Man, and I'm just too dumb to quit. I'm kind of a hard-headed guy. And I sort of believe that God has made me to be that way on purpose. And so it just got harder. The job got harder and harder and harder. And I know, like, I'm no fool. I know if you talk to the people that I was working with, they wouldn't have the same opinion of the experience as I would. I'm a storyteller. I understand how to see the story from different sides. And I can see their viewpoint, but I know what it felt like from inside my own shoes. And we just disagreed on some fundamental things, like, what does it mean to be a professional? What does it mean to train professionals? What does it mean to be an educator who's also an artist, but is an artist creating artists first for the kingdom as well? And but the way that was going, it had me sick. And it had me questioning who I was, like who God made me to be. And unfortunately, I think that was the intention of some of the people I worked with. And so God called us out of that situation and then sent us on like a 18-month road trip of the United States, where, God bless my wife, she followed.
Yeah.
My little girl cut her teeth on her first national tour of sorts. Like, we went all over the place, worked at 3 different universities, did shows in 5 different states, saw hundreds of people, performed in front of tens of thousands of people. It was really an exceptional time, but it just, it was difficult, but it was one that was marked by really high faith steps.
Yeah.
And the whole reason for it is to be able to share the story about how Jesus provided for us all along the way. And I'll say this, and this is kind of like the cap on our walk as artists, as a married couple, as artists, as parents, as evangelists in this field, this mission field of the arts, is that while we were traveling, my wife got very sick and almost died while we were in Oklahoma City. No, she didn't know that she almost died. In fact, when the doctors told her it was a possibility, she looked at them and was like, well, that doesn't make sense. I can't die. I'm supposed to have more children. So you're going to have to come up with another option. Right. And the doctors looked at me, and I was like, hey, look, you heard her. You're going to have to come up with another option. She's got plans.
Yeah.
And that's just kind of how my wife is. And not only that, but while we were on that tour, the Lord made it very clear that our next step was to go through New York City and to get planted. We spent a season of traveling, and it was time to get planted. And so because of that, I actually turned down the job that I had wanted for a decade, which was to be a theater teacher and educator at my alma mater, which has one of the best theater programs in the nation. A good friend of mine and a mentor of mine said, I really want you to consider working with us this next year. And I thought about it for just a moment. And I said, yeah, I can't do that. What are you talking about? You'd be a perfect fit here. You're just what we're looking for. in a future candidate. I really want you to think about it. And I said, I can't. Well, what do you mean you can't? I said, well, Jesus said, I gotta move to New York. And I really think what he's going to do with us is have us go back into full-time ministry and do more performance on the side. And my friend looks at me and he goes, do you have a job lined up? Nope. So you're turning down a job offer because you don't have a job lined up in ministry in one of the most expensive locations in the world? Yep. That's what I'm doing. It's like, okay, you've got a chance to work at your alma mater, one of the best theater programs in the world. You'll be making 2-3 times more than what you could make in any ministry position. And that's not considering the fact that you'll be, basically at the poverty level if you move to the Northeast. It's like, yes, I understand what you're saying, but I have to do this because that's what the Lord is calling me to do. But you don't have a job lined up. Yes, I know. Have you even applied? Yeah, a couple. Has anybody called you back? No, not yet. But you feel like this is what's going to happen? Yes. And so my friend's like, okay, man, whatever you got to do. And so here's what happened. I leave that situation, which was a good situation. I was actually pinch hitting for another teacher, and directing and teaching some classes at the University of Oklahoma. And I leave that situation because it's the end of the semester. I drive home to Kansas City to see my folks for Christmas. And while I'm in Kansas City, I get a phone call that says, Clayton, we'd like to fly you from Kansas into New York so that you can come up and interview for this position at our church in Connecticut. And so suddenly I was taken back to that moment in Richmond, Virginia, where I was sitting in my car feeling the Lord's calling to go from Kansas Street to New York Avenue.
Cool.
And that's exactly what he did. We flew out of MCI into LaGuardia. We got on a train. We took the train up to Fairfield, Connecticut. And I walked into this situation where I was interviewing for this job with this just remarkable confidence because I knew the Lord was sending us. And here we are. It's year 2. Things are going exceptionally well in spite of this wild global pandemic. Our church is being creative and intentional. We're reaching out to people. We're actually, in a lot of ways, I think, increasing our artistic expression in ministry. And I just know that if your listeners who are also artists will stop focusing on, now again, be as professional as you can be and be as excellent as is capable. But it's not your job to focus on self-promotion. It's not your job to focus on the next gig. You take professional steps, don't get me wrong. But if you will focus on the Lord and you will listen to his guidance, like one of the things my wife says all the time is that Jesus is your PR man. He's going to do public relations for you. He's going to promote you into the next position. He's going to be the one that casts you in the show. He's going to be the one that gets you that choreography opportunity. He's going to be the one that gets you hired into the apprenticeship or the dance company. He's going to be the one that gets you the art showing for your photography or your paintings or your sculpture. He's the one. He does it.
Yeah.
And if you'll focus on that relationship first, then all of these artistic and professional relationships, they come right along with.
That is beautiful. And that ties perfectly into just your heart for artists. And is there anything else you would want to share just to speak directly to artists in this season? Maybe specifically about, getting outside of our box and our comfort zone a little bit during this pandemic.
Absolutely. So one of the things you've heard me say is that I started my own business. And about 3 years ago, when I left university teaching, I didn't want to leave teaching because personally, I think if you look at the scripture, it says some have the gift of teaching. I didn't identify that in myself. Somebody identified that in me. But I love seeing people excel. I love seeing them sort of unlock new and spectacular things about their ability, about themselves. And I loved my job at the university. I just didn't love the environment I was in.
Mm-hmm.
So I was never going to quit teaching. So I started my own coaching business where I work with early career theater performers in the first, second, third years out of school, or those people who are in a transition. They're moving from one market to another, or they're moving from one sort of branch of the industry to another.
Right.
And I started that business and I built that business over 3 years into a 5-figure income. Now,
Wow.
there's no Ferrari in my garage or a Lamborghini in my driveway like you see on YouTube and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a significant portion of what we were doing. It's about 30% of our annual income.
Yeah.
And when COVID came along, it just vanished, absolutely vanished. I think up to this point, it's cost us a little under $9,000.
Wow.
And that's just between February and now.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was sort of at a loss for a little bit. I was like, okay, Jesus, well, what am I going to do? I was like, well, you're going to start something new because you start things. Ah, yes. Okay. That makes sense.
Mm-hmm. That resonates.
And yeah. And you're going to coach because you coach and you teach people. I was like, ah, yes. Okay. That also makes sense. And what I realized is that I didn't have enough time to start something else from scratch. I actually needed to work with something that already existed.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you're going to start a business, and so this is what I'm doing now. I am helping friends and artists in particular start a new online stream of income in the next 30 to 90 days. And there are 3 different ways you can do that. You can do hard products, right? You can do brick and mortar. You could start a store, a shop of some kind. If you happen to have a lot of capital, which most artists don't, you can promote your own content. You can create info products or books or something like, so you can either sell a physical product or you can create a product of some
Mm-hmm.
kind, or you can basically work through promotions, meaning you can do like a single level affiliate
Mm-hmm.
where you promote somebody's product or you promote somebody's hard goods and you get a commission off of that. Or you can promote something inside of a larger network. And that's actually what I've done. I've started moving that direction, actually both. So I do some single level affiliate marketing, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm also a part of what's called the distributive downline model. A lot of you have probably heard of the setup, but you've probably heard it as like network marketing or an MLM. And
Right.
so what I'm helping folks do is identify what is their approach.
Yeah.
What is the thing that they do? So I was working with a voice teacher who wanted to go from in-person to online. Happy to help her do that. Helped her earn $2,500 in 1 month.
Nice.
And she was at the point where like she was going to get evicted and they were going to come get her car.
Wow.
I said, okay, follow these steps. This is what I did. This is how I started my own business. You don't have to figure it out. I've already figured it out. Follow these steps and it'll work for you.
And that's
And she
such
did.
a gift to people because a lot of it is the fear of the unknown and just having
Absolutely.
someone that can take you from point A to point B and then to point
Yeah.
C,
Yeah,
that's huge.
Exactly. And it's because I had 3 years time to do it on my own, but we're all sort of in a spot now where we don't quite have the time.
Right.
And I heard somebody say that a fool learns from his own mistakes, but a wise man learns from somebody else's mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
So I just want to let you know that I have learned from my own mistakes, and I'm now actually giving away that information so that others can be successful.
Nice.
Because I personally believe when artists are healthy, when storytellers are healthy, then they do a great job telling stories and creating art. Exceptional art changes the way people see the world. When people are changed, when they see the world in a different way, then they contribute more to the society that they're in. And when people are changed, Communities are changed. When communities are changed, cultures change. When culture is changed, everything gets better, right?
Ah,
And
that
so
makes me so excited. Yeah.
that's why I do what I do.
Right. Help artists to be healthy and be in that space.
Exactly. And one of the best ways to be a healthy artist is to have your bills paid and have food on the table,
Yes.
right? When
Amen.
you're hungry, and like physically hungry or spiritually hungry, when you're hungry as an artist, you will compromise.
Mm.
And when you compromise your voice as an artist, your storytelling prowess, your creative endeavors, they are diminished in their ability to change lives, right?
Wow. Mm-hmm.
Or you'll compromise your values to get the job, and you'll give your power to somebody else's story that's damaging, right?
Mm-hmm.
As a performer, there are shows I won't do because I disagree with what they say.
Yeah.
Now, some of them are exceptional pieces of theater, and I think they're perfectly written, but I can't support the story behind it.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't have to take those jobs when you've got food on the table and a roof over your head.
Yeah, there's not that desperation feeling.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And there has never been a better time in all of the world's history than now for someone to start their own thing. Like all of the tools, they're
Mm-hmm.
right here. They're available for you. The ability to promote something online that somebody else has created and to get paid for it, like that never really existed like it does now.
That's so true. Yeah.
So that's what I've been doing personally. My wife and I, we promote some products through an essential oils company called Young Living. I've really appreciated the culture and the products, but to me, I see it as a tool to really help people create a residual income where they can put in a little consistent work over time, and it can begin to pour into their life and into their family in a way that allows them to be more creative because they can be less fearful and less hungry.
Mm.
But if that's not your model, I just have a knack for finding a way to make whatever is your thing a paying thing.
Mm-hmm. That totally
Right?
gets at your entrepreneurial spirit
That's
that's
where I'm
been
at.
with you since you were young. So
Yeah,
cool.
absolutely.
One of the gifts. Yeah. Well, as we kind of wrap up today, one question I like to ask is, what is one of your favorite things right now? So that could be something super simple or more profound, however you want to go with it. So.
Well, I've been reading, I mentioned earlier that I'm a big fan of C.S. Lewis.
Mm-hmm.
And I have been reading through the Chronicles of Narnia with my daughter.
So good.
She could read them on her own. She's a pretty smart kid. But it's lovely to go through them and to just see the power of Lewis's storytelling, his ability to craft an analogy and spread it out over, an epic tale that covers, multiple stories and worlds and characters.
Mm-hmm.
And everything he does has this kingdom thread in it that just honestly brings me to tears.
Yeah.
Simultaneously, I'm helping so many people start new businesses online. And the one thing that I lean on is kind of superpower that Jesus has crafted into our life is this power of storytelling. And so
Mm-hmm.
I think the one thing that I'm really excited about right now is the power of storytelling to change people's lives.
Yeah.
It's a story that we're given in the beginning, 66 books, it is finished, right? It's a story that we're given that literally tells us how we understand everything around us. It
Mm-hmm.
is stories that Jesus used to answer questions. Over 100 questions Jesus was asked in his ministry time. And he only gave 2 straight answers. Everything
Wow.
else was answered with a story.
That's true.
I was planted in a storytelling world when I was just 11, and the Lord made it my place. And he's cultivated this gift of storytelling in me. And now here we are. And I feel like Joseph in a way,
Mm-hmm.
sitting maybe in Potiphar's prison going, oh, yes, there's a story here that would help you And
Yeah.
maybe if you use storytelling like this, it can actually deliver your people
Wow.
from
Yeah.
this season of life. And so that's it. Instantly when people start telling me their ambitions and their goals and start telling me what their thing is, what their hope is, what their dream is, my brain goes into storytelling mode, and I start telling them stories about how it will succeed and what stories they need to tell to make it succeed.
Hmm.
And all of the work that I've been doing as coach and an actor and a teacher, it all sort of coalesces around these 4 simple questions that if you can answer, then you can take your thing and you can monetize it. Do you want to know what those 4 questions are?
Yes, I would love to know what those 4 questions are, and I'm guessing our listeners would too. So,
Yeah. And I asked if you want to know, because I know right now you're doing this
yes, this
podcast
podcasting thing.
as a passion project.
Yes.
But a life as a podcast or a blogger or an infopreneur, you can turn this into a monetized event if you can answer these 4 questions.
Mm-hmm.
And what's wild is these are the exact same questions I give to actors when they start doing a monologue for an
Oh,
audition.
interesting. Cool.
And here's what they are. Who are you talking to? Where are they located? What do you want from them? And how are you going to get it?
That's incredible. Well, we should definitely hang out and talk some more after this. Or at some point, maybe another day.
there's a possibility for that. Absolutely.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Well, I know this has been a huge inspiration to me, and I've loved getting to hear your story. I knew like little bits and pieces of it, but to get to hear you tell it, and thank you for sharing with everyone
My
those
pleasure.
bits of wisdom, and just also I think it encourages our faith to hear other stories of people taking those faith steps when it feels wild, and being able to just jump in feet first and just go for it.
He's not crazy because he knows what he's doing, but he is wild.
Mm-hmm.
And if you will say yes to him when he asks you to do something wild, you will have the most exciting stories, but you will also go and do and see things that you never would have imagined.
So good. So good. Well, is there a place where people can connect with you?
Absolutely. Well, not unlike when I was working 4 jobs and 60 hours a week between Monday and Thursday, there are lots of ways to get a hold of me.
Love it.
Probably the easiest would be to reach out to me either on Facebook or Instagram at J Clayton Winters. That's JClaytonWinters. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram there. If you happen to be a theater performer and you are interested in spending a year of guided coaching with an ensemble of 5 other professionals, then you can find me on Facebook and Instagram at The Audition Boss. It's the same handle on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And if the idea of promoting an exceptional product in a company that's been around for a quarter of a century and last year made over $2 billion helping people start businesses in their homes, if that's something that interests you, or if you just want to know more about affiliate or distributive downline marketing, then you can check out what we're doing in 2 places. One is online at www.limbandleaf, like my arm and a tree leaf, limbandleaf.net, or you can find us on Facebook at Limb and Leaf Essentials.
Awesome. Well, thank you so, so much, Clayton, for joining me today. This has been amazing.
My pleasure.
You can find links from the show in the full show notes on our website, creativeimpactpodcast.com. You can also become a monthly supporter of the podcast by joining our Patreon community. As a supporter, you get access to extra content that is only available for patrons. We've just posted new content for our patrons, including a behind-the-scenes look at what goes into creating a podcast and bonus content from this conversation with Clayton today. You can learn more at creativeimpactpodcast.com/PATREON. Later this month, we're going to be doing our first ever giveaway. The prize will go to one of our email newsletter subscribers. If you haven't subscribed yet, it's not too late. You can subscribe on our website where it says Stay Connected. Next week, my guest for the show is Clayton's lovely wife, Jessie Winters. Jessie and I have so much fun talking about her experiences as a dancer, teacher, and a mom. Thank you for listening to the Creative Impact Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to our email newsletter. The music for the show was produced by Michael Cash. Share the show with a friend, and I'll see you next week for my conversation with Jessie Winters.